Hello everyone and welcome back to day 3 of playing on the budget account. I gave it a couple of days to kind of be out there for a while, get some feedback if I was going to any, and the feedback was pretty positive overall. But what we're going to do now is we still just only have our mono white deck that we looked at, but a thing you kind of have to do on a budget account, you really have to focus on completing your daily challenges and re-rolling them to ones that are a bit better. If it's a 500 one, you should always re-roll it if you have the option, because it has a chance to become a 750 gold coin one. The reason this will be important is because we can save up for our packs and then pop them, or maybe try to do some standard challenges if our budget deck we feel is strong enough to do so. But right now, probably not. We're probably lacking on a couple rares, maybe a couple fine tuning. But I'm going to go ahead and try to complete these out and then get to our packs that we're going to pick. We did our challenges, get our golds, and now we have 6,000, so we can buy some packs. We also earned a pack because one of the games we weirdly did win it ended up just working out. So we'll open our Hobbit pack, and then we will open more. Gonna settle the wreckage, which is quite funny if we ever go like a control style. But what packs to get? Honestly, I think cards on their own that are actually pretty strong. I actually do like the Hobbit quite a bit. I'm just gonna barrel them. It's also a new set, so in standard the longest. Kind of one of the things you always have to build for now and for the future, so you don't mess up your later. Hit 4 mythics. Dreamer luck, I guess. Now I get 2 of anything whatsoever. I don't know if anybody's had like a new account and felt this has happened quite often, but yeah, I mean, we'll definitely take that. We were really looking for some common uncommons like this, where we got some more stuff to craft into. But with that, we'll dive into the deck. As you can see, I built my 2 challenge decks. I blue challenge and red challenge. Actually, go in here and we can look at it. We did open a curiosity, so we used it. We used Pioneer Terror, and then we kind of put a lot of 2 drops in terms of like the one-ofs we were playing, things like that. We didn't waste any crafting material to do this because it did not matter. That's the thing when it comes to your challenges. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose. You are just there to complete the challenge. So in the red deck, I kept trying to find the best option, and a little part of me in the back of my head was, back when I play on my normal account, like, oh, I'll just craft the extra shocks or whatever. My challenge was to remove creatures from the game and attack 2 more times. It was attack 15 times. So all I did was put in anything that could technically remove a creature and attack that was 1 or 2 mana, just to do my challenge in a normal open. I didn't want to risk anything. Just wanted to do it. We lost pretty bad. Our opponent just played stuff and we lose, but that wasn't the point of us going into that match. Unfortunately for them, they don't really get much of a game out of it. But when I'm trying to record quickly like this, or not quick, but try to cover a lot of stuff like this, kind of the nature of the game, because we do want to win, because we get the reward from this, our 15 dailies, which is really nice. And other than that, we're going to try to maybe build a deck here. So here we are. We're going to be building into mono blue, as you'll see, kind of the staple of the deck over here, and a lot of cards that we are kind of fluffing in, because that's just what we have to do when we're on a lower account. Cards that I know for a fact that are good is 1, Eddie Crab. We know this card's good. You don't have to get validation. If you don't know how I know a card is good, there's plenty of resources out there. A lot of times I use MTG Goldfish, but you can find in a lot of places, I think like Channel Fireball still does it, things like that, where you can find tournament results of good decks and go from there. TCG Player, not TCG Player, they do kind of have stuff like that, but Untapped can do it as well. I can show a couple of those resources in a video, kind of more explaining of how to find decks later without even really any gameplay. But we know this card's good. We know Sunderflock's good, and there's 2 type of decks to go in. The only problem with Sunderflock is this is the deck for it. Eddie Crab can be put in a couple of decks, but not really. But the cost of an uncommon in comparison to a rare is a lot lower once we build up our challenges and get our wins, stuff like that, and start cracking packs. These commons and uncommons will eventually grow, so we do feel a little bit more willing to exhaust them or spend them, if you would. We just have to be a little bit careful so we can craft other things if need be. The other thing too is I got pretty lucky by opening 2 stock ups, as I can pull them there. And so you can see I only need to craft 2, which is pretty awesome. I would probably craft this card over the other one, the Flow State, even though Flow State is one cheaper and maybe a bit better in this deck. Stock Up just goes into a lot more decks than Flow State. For example, if we pivot into Control, once we get kind of our deck variants out and more rares and mythics, and we can kind of craft that, then we're going to want Stock Up. Blue Black's going to want Stock Up. Flow State is more or less for this deck, but Stock Up is universally a better card for all of our other decks that we are looking into. And then we're going to have to craft Sleight of Hands for commons. Like I said, I'm willing to exhaust a lot of those now, and I've never played on this account without like being on camera, besides when I did the challenges, because I felt like just watching me jam a couple spells and going through it that way was not that entertaining. So I just did the challenges, and now here we are to craft this out and dive right into some games. We're going to go play in a norm first and see if we like the way it's kind of flowing, and then we might make a couple adjustments as we sit at 4-1-4-8 with common, uncommon, rare, and mythic. So we could maybe put some mythics in the deck because we have an abundance of them right now. But with that, let's dive into the games. All right. Sweet. I mean, we got a lot of spells to play. We do have to worry a little about the flashback here, because obviously flashing this back will exile it according to flashback, and then it'll actually lower our count for Eddie Mercrab. Well, I mean the opposite. It will up our count because it'll be in the graveyard. We'll take it out, and then it'll actually make this more expensive, I guess is a way I could word that. But opt ready to go. We don't really want to do anything until they're in step. We can worry about this later. There's no point of unsummoning this now because it's not attacking. They could potentially hold a protection spell later, but I can always go into this turn and unsummon it. A lot of lands. We played 22, put 1 to the bottom, so hopefully this will stop and we can kind of flow into some spells here. It could protect this. I'm not playing around that really here. The Shelter by Ghost or something could matter. And now they're going to gain some life here. This value will already be gained later, because whenever another creature control attacks, we put the Pride Mate back in their hand now, so they can't really do much about it. Enchant, creature loses all abilities and becomes the O2 artifact. So we're going to make this lose abilities. We kind of shut it off immediately for now. And the thing about this is now when it says another creature control enters, you gain a life. So now when this enters, they will not gain a life and put a counter on this now. So it does buy us a little more time to get to this Eddie Mercrab into a Sunderflock and kind of grind the game out from there. But on decision making time, and they could attack 0. Some cards actually rely on that. We actually play 1 in our deck currently. Do not need more lands. I do know that. Another crab, not the worst. Another crab again, not the worst, because we are now able to cast them. So if they were 5 mana, there'd be a pretty devastating chain of events here. But because we can cast it whenever you gain life, but it won't counter on this creature as long as you have 25 more life. This creature has double strike. Okay. So now they're going to try to go to combat. This enters tap, so we can't necessarily ambush them here. In terms of flashing this in and blocking, not something to get familiar with. And holy cards to draw. Back in your hand, and over the next 2 turns, we're probably going to win this game because we're going to hit for 10, and then we're going to be able to Sunderflock them again. But we will see. Life total change won't matter too much. We can actually stagger it where we do Eddie Mercrab first because the math works out to being the same. That actually leaves us in a bit better of a chance to win, because the most they're probably going to be able to do here is put 2 creatures into play, and then we can tap both those creatures, hit them, and then whenever they're ready to play more creatures, we can bounce all 4 of them instead of the opposite where we do this. I guess it doesn't really matter. Now it kind of matters. I guess if that's the type of stuff going to be played, I guess it would probably be this. Okay, we just drew all 4 crabs. Well, we'll see if they block. Block. Sense. But they will gain a little life when they play this, right? They do need 1 more land. Play something like this into Pride Mate, which will make all the difference. They're actually going to gain 2 life here, unfortunately. I want them to have to block this creature. So before we bounce them, we force them to block first. And the reason why we make them block first is so they lose access to this creature to replay back down to start triggering all their stuff again. But we also might just do Eddie Merc Crab again. So we could Sunderflock, but then they'll play all their stuff back down. They almost have the mana to do so. They actually, one more land, they can play all 3 of these back down. Instead, I can go for more power. Make 4 dogs. Okay. I guess here's another reason. They're going to gain a lot of life. That's perfectly fine so far. They resolve all, so all this will go ahead and happen. And this is where Sunderflock is going to come in and be an absolute beast. We Sunderflock once again. This target doesn't matter as much. We're not going to take enough damage that it matters too much to us. We're a lot of blockers back. We'll just show them the flock that sunders. Put all their units back in their hand. And very cool. We take that game away, kind of in the way we want. Obviously, we'd like those crabs to be a bit cheaper with our spells, but we flooded a little bit on 22. Not really too likely to happen, but I think with the more expensive cards in our deck, we do have to play with a bit more mana. For example, we're loaded up on stock ups, and cards like this require 4 mana to be flashbacked. So as long as we're hitting land drops, it doesn't really matter too much because Sunderflock goes down to 2 on the crabs. So we take that game away and we call it a day. Hey, a fantastic opener here. We'll hold this. So just need 1 more land, but we're going to get a lot of looks. We're going to get 1 draw for turn to play land, another draw, and then 2 more draws. So a total of 4, potentially 5 draws before needed. Probably going to go for Think Twice because this is an instant spell, and this does force us to start a card. I don't really want to do that just quite yet. And fall and land, put 1 more counter till on a turn. Reach and Death Touch. That is pretty good. We could just go ahead and counter this and get value. Why not? Opt into maybe a chart course. Let's try. After the last game. Oh, we're missing lands now. Did a lot of flooding, and now we're on missing lands. This is okay to some extent. Maybe I should have let that resolve and really went for the Think Twice, but it is what it is. Trying to assume that we will hit some lands at some point. We are at 49 unknown cards. Discard a card. Think Twice has value. Unable to Scream is kind of whatever, but this card has value in our graveyards. We don't really care to discard it now. We go Island. I could go Unable to Scream. Doesn't increase this at all. I think Quick Study might be the move, or maybe I just go Stock Up. I think I'd much rather go Quick Study if they play another thing that forces me to discard. Goblin Bard and Spider. So there's not really a synergy I see in terms of being like a Spider's deck or a Goblin deck like that. Oh, we'll see. The notorious back-to-back games where color deck. Then, well, I think I might have been in one of my playtest games. Not playtest. Sorry. What am I trying to say? One of the ones where I was grinding for the like attack with creatures, the challenges. Wow. They had like 7 mountains and a single card of something else. I do not have an answer to that, but we do. I mean, I guess we do have an answer to that. Stay even. A lot of my cards are odd, so that's pretty good. Grab odd overall. It is odd. No trigger here. Nice. And we hit a land, which is pretty awesome. And we have a crab ready to go. We're gonna take that thing's abilities away, so I just don't even have to worry about the cards I'm casting. The best case here is I get to opt and then play a crab for 2, which is awesome. And then we can really get into the game. Probably going to play this, I would imagine, if 5/5 Trampler for 5, that they got to play the extra land off. It's pretty nice. A lot of mana, though. And they played a card that let them play an extra land, so I don't know if they're playing any big stuff. This is actually a really good creature as well. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, choose 1, put them on a counter, or create a treasure. It's just a really nice card that can kind of grind out a game a bit. So we're gonna opt. We're gonna flash in this to prevent any kind of attack. I know it's just 1 damage and it seems not ideal to just like threat over it. I guess this could be sorcery removal. Honestly, yeah, something like strategic betrayal is probably worth letting 1 damage happen over. I was thinking, well, you know, if they have shoot the sheriff or something like that, they could do it anyway. But I forget that strategic betrayal is a sorcery, so we do want to wait till this end step. Or if they're in a situation where they're playing an enchantment like I had to, you know, if it doesn't have flash, I can just, and now they're stuck. Double tap these. This is still a legendary creature, so, you know, does matter somewhat. I now want to go stock up, I think. Go to combat first, but let's stock up. At some point, we're going to hit a plot of lands. I say that, this will be 5 lands. You already have a crab in hand. I think here I weirdly just want to take more lands so I can consistently hit them. Again, with our deck requiring a bit more mana than normal, do want to overall just keep hitting our land drops. We do have 1 Sunderflock on the bottom, so we don't have that out, and 1 Eddymer Crab. So we do have to be a bit more protective here. Well, we could unsummon this if we'd like, but we're pretty solid on our blockers right now. And this has to deal combat to a player, not a creature. So if I do get to block it here, it would just be gone. Let's go other crab. And then we're going to probably start jamming some of these draw discard spells. On instep here, there's a pause. Again, that could just be a shoot the sheriff, a bitter triumph. All those cards are not rares, so, you know, kind of nature of the game. That one and this one, don't want to let them have a free block with an 0-2. I'd much rather them be forced to block the 1-1 or a 3-2. Finally hit another land. Chart of Course is an interesting card. So this card says discard or draw 2 cards and then discard a card unless you attack this turn. We are going to attack before we Chart a Course. We just want to use 2 mana, draw 2, which is pretty good. Other than the fact that Flow State is technically a better card than Chart a Course, and that would be direct substitution I would use if I have the means to do so. Obviously, I'm a bit more on the, hey, here's a literally brand new, so I don't have 30 to 40 common and uncommons to craft my stuff with. As you can see, we just get to build up a bit here. I do have an unsummon that I feel pretty safe with. So I'm going to go ahead and cast this Chart of Course, see if I can't find something maybe a little bit better. Or lands, okay. The fear of what happened earlier is now coming to fruition. We saw 3 lands in that stock up pile. We took them and since then have drawn quite a bit of lands, which is fine. It is what it is. Not too brokenhearted about it. Got 8, 9, 10. Look top 4 cards of your library, reveal a permanent card. I'll just set my resolve. I can't do anything about it. Well, you may reveal a permanent card from among them, put it in your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library. Landfall, when it lands from enters, this creature gets +2/+. Okay. Pretty expensive, but it is common. That's kind of the scale of it. This would be like a 4 mana rare. Right, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card from among them, put it into your hand. I go with another rat, I think, or not rat. The rat cards are discard cards a lot of times, but it's a 1 or 2 mana discard a card. We have plenty of islands to get rid of. Don't you worry there. They just pass it up. The longer this game goes, the happier I think we are in general. So I'm gonna go ahead and quick study. Keep filling our hand up here. First roll token, which is really, really sweet. Now this is just a generic 1/1. We get this ticking, which is very nice. And then we can double unsummon here. I should attack with I think at least 1 here because I do get unsummon opportunities. And there's not really a block that they can make happen that works out in their favor really. Jump here. That's great, right? Stuff off the board for us. Especially considering if we ever draw our Sunderflock copies 2 through 4. The thing that we get to do, right, is we get to bounce all that stuff and not worry about this coming back down as a full value creature. Now that they can look at our graveyard and name odd as the card, because I think they named even. Most of the cards we play are odd. Don't really have a bird. This counterspell is just kind of fully dead here. I don't really want to bounce this unless I have this counterspell up. If it's taking 6 on the turn, then it's taking 6 on the turn. Because again, they can play it. They have the mana to do so. So I think I just have to eat this. Don't want them to get another card from it. When it enters, it grabs a permanent card, right? So we go opt. The next turn, if they play something else, I can then bounce it and they'll play it for the turn, most likely. And then I can put it away. Okay, scry 2. Anything but lands. We're really looking for that Thunderflock now. Thunderflock would help us close out this game insanely quick because we have 2 unsummons and they'll be 2 mana arrived about it. Play to hand 1. Actually, we'll probably keep because I can go think twice here. Draw the 1 side of hand. Then I can cast it like next turn and we can really dig for this Thunderflock. I'm just going to let this go and kind of hold my turn up to do our play. I am going to force a little action here. Again, the closer we get when they attack something like this, I do get to do the unsummons. Close out the game that way. We never find that Thunderflock. We're halfway. We're actually technically more than halfway through our deck. So we have 3 mixed into 25-ish cards. We know our top card and we know the bottom 5 by clicking on our deck here. So we know 6 of our 31. So 25 actually exactly. Pretty cool. Although obviously we know our next draw is going to be a sleight of hand. So obviously that's not going to be a Thunderflock there. When Golem enters, exile up to 1 target card from the opponent's graveyard. Each opponent loses 2 life. Sacrifice this artifact, return this card from the graveyard to your hand. Okay. Lose a card, which thankfully we actually used our think twice, so it doesn't quite matter. Now if we go to combat, they're going to... I hope they play land so they attack with this. I'm going to bounce it regardless to force them to play it into our Dazzling Denial. It should be somewhat of an obvious line. We're going to do it during combat, so maybe our opponent will think, oh, well, they didn't want me to attack with that. Maybe nervous about it or something, you know. Then they can replay it, and then we'll counter it. It's all part of the plan. So declare attackers. Also, they can't just go wide on me and hit me for 4, because I would block the 4/4, of course, and I am at 10. So obviously, that's going to end up mattering. Will they tap out for this? World will never know. Will they tap out? Will our plan of setting it up fruition? It sure does. Get it? They did think about it for a while. Wasn't really sure if they wanted to, which sometimes you kind of just have to, because if I'm holding a counter spell, that means I'm just going to do it multiple times, right? Play to hand. We'll take this to tap a creature and make 2 creatures. Then we found our Thunderflock. Sweet. So with that, I can just go into combat and see where my opponent's at. Again, forcing them to block first. Maybe we see a 1/1 block here. Then it will take 5. And then they won't have this to replay back down. And honestly, it might just go into this, tap a creature, bounce the other creature, because they're going to take 5 here. Maybe the other way would just win me the game. But let's slide a hand. We're going to grab this opt. And everything's at instant speed now. I'll just pass. Then I can tab this creature. Look to double block this creature. That's the case. Oh, this can't even block. So I actually don't even care about this one at all. That down. This is a card that typically in the better versions of the deck does not play, but we do find some enjoyment out of it. One of the reasons we have to keep our mana base a bit higher. 1/1 target creature gains trample and hexproof. I've been waiting for this play. I'm going to put it back in their hand. Now they're forced to play this back down. They have really no good attack. Good attack with this. Doesn't block, but I'm here to protect my life total as much as I can. These 1/1s don't matter. Also, if I want to play Thunderflock, those will go away anyway, and they do not have the artifact to sacrifice to bring it back. They did find a really cool synergy in their deck, though. When this creature deals combat damage to the player, they make a treasure. 2 mana, sacrifice an artifact or creature, return this card from the graveyard to your hand. So, they do have a cool little 1-2 punch here with these 2 cards. Synergy overall. I could have looked for another Essence Scatter, but kind of holding to see what my opponent does here. Stopped. Another crab. Well, that'll just do it. Find the win just immediately. Then we go right into combat. Very nice, very nice. Grinding out these games, playing around some cards that we haven't quite had to play around before, but that's the nature of the game. So with that, we'll move on. All right, we are now actually in a ranked game. Like I said, I did want to play a couple norms and then go in ranked. Felt pretty okay with how it was going. This might be a dead card in the opener, but I think I'll keep this opener. We have draw, or draw adjacent, draw, stock up to find all of our threats. That's 3 cards immediately into our graveyard. And Disdainful Stroke can be held up at the same time, I think twice is there. Well, if I see an Ouroboros, I do have a good answer to it, at least. And I will probably need to go ahead and take this Thunderflock. So hopefully when we find this crab, we can Thunderflock and put everything back in our hand. It will be 1 turn behind on this, though, but it does stagger well into this, I think twice. Holding this up into our quick study, right? So everything's looking pretty okay. Go here, and then we go ahead and pass. Again, we're looking to pick up that 4-drop. Third Disdainful Stroke. Not quite it. Not quite it, Chief. Will be a begging for an Eddie Merc crab angle. We do have to find it quite quickly. Yep. Or at least an unsummon to kind of stall this out a bit. One wall here. Blue into mono green. Game is vastly a bit different if we're on the play, as they would just be on these 2 right here for the turn and tapped, and we'd go into our 3rd mana, right? So, I mean, it is the nature of the game, right? You do have to play on the draw. You have to play it on the play. So, it's not like there's a lot to do otherwise. But here, I do have an unsummon, which it feels like it's going to have to be a requirement to play. I could sleight of hand, and if I have to counter an Ouroboros, and there's the crab. Okay. We just have to survive a turn or 2 here. It could give hexproof, so we do have to be very cautious of that. But almost best case scenario is our opponent like just taps out and plays an Ouroboros, right? Because we can just pick that up and not have to worry about bouncing it later. Although it doesn't matter quite as much. Loading up on a Chocobo. Fine. I almost want to bounce their Force to their hand, but our Thunderflock will do that. Plan doesn't matter whether it enters or not. They'll have the hexproof or whatever regardless. So we're not that brokenhearted about it. You do need this unsummoned to work, though. Although I guess even if it doesn't, right, with what they kind of have in play, as long as our Eddie Merc Crab's here for the turn. Oh, it just works. No protection. Very nice. So they fully loaded up on 1 creature. These counters should have been going somewhere else. It is a learning moment. You don't want to make your priority target more of a priority, right? We were already concerned about this Chocobo. We were not as concerned with these, right? Because they're kind of just doing whatever they're doing to begin with. However, our opponent which is fine. It happens, right? Our opponent saw this as their best card and was overloading the value onto it with the Earthbender's Ascension, when this should have been maybe putting counters here, because then they get that extra value, right? So here they're going to focus on this again. It's already going to grow on its own, right? This is already growing on its own. Grow something else. Turn this Landwar Elf into a 5/5, right? So whenever I answer this, you still have your 5/5. Or if I answer this, this can then grow into a much larger creature, right? So it's just, again, learning moments. It is what it is, right? Not anything else. Let's see if they decide. They finally do. There we go. Awesome. That's super dope. Go a crab. Tap and tap. And then here even, this is another example of a situation where, well, if this Landwar Elf was a bit chunkier, right, we'd be losing a bit more life here. But it's okay. Growing the Chocobo a bit earlier is also fine. Like, they did grow it a tad bit earlier. I am going to stock up and dig for an island. Most likely we're going to hit. So with 4 lands and things like that, sometimes you can be a bit riskier. We didn't have to take that risk, but I felt it necessary to kind of close this game out quickly. But also the odds are heavy in our favor that there's going to be a land there, right? So, I mean, you can just see how many it was. In general, our hand was full of cards. Those were cards. The statistic likelihood of us missing wasn't very high. So, we just take the chance, right? 22 lands, add 4. Looking at 5 at, it would have been 45 deep. So, 5 there. So, in our top 20, do we think we will have 5 lands playing 22? Yeah, but we'll see. Could always get punished, right? Go a little bit of a glow up here. And I do think this Landwar Elf should be like growing off this, but that's okay. Oh, now officially stop bringing that up. The game so close, but yet so far, it feels, for our opponent here. Painful Stroke. Doesn't seem like it's going to have a target anytime soon. Or Borroid not necessarily coming in here. And we might even just get a concession on a second Thunderflock, but go ahead and play it. Put all that back in their hand. All their progression is walked back, and we hit for 10. And then we have this flash in while having a Disdainful Stroke held up for a 4-drop. Or we can even do this, tap a creature, and not even have to do this. Case of some random thing, right? But I don't think there's a world we lose this game right now. And then we pretty much just chalk it up and call it a day, right? Pretty good. Exactly. Not much our opponent could do after we threw the crab. It was kind of just a GG there because we did have the Thunderflock, which this deck is very momentum based. If you do hit the Eddie Merc Crab that doesn't get answered and a Thunderflock comes in, you still have a chance. If a second Thunderflock comes in and I still have cards in my hand, probably over because it's really hard to. But yeah, with that, we'll take the win and we'll call it a day. Okay, so this is where we settled up. It actually came out and worked pretty well. I think that really just goes to show knowing what cards are really, really strong in the meta actually matters. Eddie Merc Crab, we know it's just a dominant card whenever it is comboed with the Thunderflock, and our deck is just all about getting to these 2 cards, with obviously some exceptions out of this one, right? Because we have, you know, Disdainful Stroke in here, Dreams in here, Essence Scatters. This Gadwix card was pretty sweet. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily fuel our graveyard for this stuff, but the reducing a creature to a 1/1 taking its abilities away, the Scry 2 is kind of cool, but the bottom part where we get to cast spell and to do it twice works pretty well in this deck comparatively, because could you imagine doing this and then casting a stock up and getting to look at our top 10, selecting the best 4? That's pretty good. That's pretty good for 3 mana and a 2 mana investment that stopped a creature from really doing anything, and getting 2 Scry as well. That's a lot of value chalked into a 2 mana uncommon. overall. But with that said, I like the way the deck played. I think it went pretty well. I do think I would recommend building the stock ups before the flows. The flows obviously can go in here for a lot of things. I think flow is just, and hands down, better than the Charter Course, even though Charter Course can weirdly help us accelerate our plan to an Eddymer Crab by casting us at 2 and then putting an extra card in the graveyard. But in the later portions of the game, the flow is going to be much better for 2 mana select 2 overall. And then obviously Dazzling Denial can probably be swapped out for maybe another type of counter spell that's this mana base, because there's a lot of 2 mana counter unless you pay 2, and then you can do another thing to make it a bit better. This one not as good. It was just one of those things where it's what we had, right? So we're playing with what we have, and that is what it is. So with that said, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. I hope you enjoyed the beginning part of the video where we did all the other stuff. And if you want to see how we got here, there should be a video linked in one of my corners somewhere about the first video and the second video and how we got to this point with our new to play account. So with that, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.